And teachers at the schools beside Ground Zero started creating projects on our site to recover from the attacks on the World Trade Center. There was a math teacher whose students' calculators were sealed at the disaster site, and their classroom had been relocated to a basement, so she requested a new set of calculators. There was a high school teacher who wanted to bring in an Afghan artist so that students could learn about Afghanistan. There was a first grade teacher whose students had been saved by a particular group of firemen, and her students wanted to thank the firemen who had saved them by doing a musical performance in front of their fire ladder company. And for that, they needed musical instruments. There were hundreds of these projects related to 9/11, and I thought that local media would jump on this story. This was right when people yearned to participate in the 9/11 recovery effort. The Red Cross had almost too many blood donations, and here was this direct way for people to help. But I must have called 100 reporters, and none of them would give me the time of day. None of them would talk to me. So I figured I better aim higher. The Holy Grail was the New York Times. They had a new reporter covering nonprofits and philanthropy. Her name was Stephanie Strom. And I figured if we could get Stephanie Strom of the New York Times to do a story about our site, we would have a shot at big-time impact. So I put together a package of materials and I mailed them off to Stephanie. Didn't hear back. So a few weeks later, I called her up, and she was nice, but she said that we were awfully small potatoes. She said, if ever I'm doing a story on online charities, which at the time was still a new concept, maybe I'll put you on that list, but I'm afraid you're not exactly newsworthy. Damn. Then I found a directory of the top people at Newsweek, and I called the senior editor there. His name was Jonathan Alter. I called him first because with a last name beginning with A, he showed up first in the alphabetical directory. I called him during my lunch hour, and his assistant must have been out to lunch because he picked up the phone. And I said, "Hey, I'm a teacher up in the Bronx. I started this nonprofit with my students. Do you want to hear about it?" And he said, "Sure." He didn't hang up on me. We talked for 45 minutes, and that night, he wrote a column for the Newsweek website saying that this experiment growing out of a Bronx classroom might one day change philanthropy. So then I called up Stephanie Strom at the New York Times, all excited, and I said, "Hey, Newsweek saw us as newsworthy, at least for their website, so won't you give us a second look?" And then she dashed my hopes. She said, "I wouldn't touch your story with a 10-foot pole now that another reporter has covered you. The New York Times does not follow in the footsteps of other publications." Oh. I felt like an idiot for having told her that another media outlet had broken our story, and I sent her an email apologizing for being so dumb. Stephanie took pity on me. She could see how badly I felt. She wrote back, and she said that I shouldn't feel quite so bad because I didn't have a chance in the first place. Because her editors had asked her to focus on charities responding to 9/11. So there was my last opening. I spent hours, I crafted this email to Stephanie telling her about all the projects that teachers beside Ground Zero were creating on our site. And I called her up over the weekend so I would go straight to voicemail and not interrupt her while she was on deadline. And I said, "This is the last time you'll ever hear from me. If you could just read this one final pitch." Monday, I was back at school teaching, and I checked my email in between periods. Stephanie had written back. She wanted to come do an interview for a major feature story in the New York Times. Now, let me tell you, I was over the moon. My parents raised me to be humble, but this was the New York Times. It felt like the skies had opened, and I had to shout. So I forwarded Stephanie's email to my friend, and I said, guess who said she wouldn't touch our story with a 10-foot pole and now wants an interview? That's what hustling will get you. I beat my chest. I talked all kinds of smack. I thought that I'd hit forward. I'd hit reply. And the moment I realized, I yanked the electrical cord out of the socket to turn off the computer. But it was too late. I sent that trash-talking, chest-beating email to Stephanie Strom, philanthropy reporter for the New York Times. So naturally, I sent her another email apologizing for being so dumb. And to Stephanie's eternal credit and mercy, she did not hold it against me. She went on to write a story, a major feature story for the New York Times, arguing that DonorsChoose.org would be the future of philanthropy.